I never imagined my life would take such a dramatic turn. 5 years of marriage to Amanda, building our lives together brick by brick, all shattered in an instant. When she won that $9 million lottery, I was ecstatic, dreaming about our future. Then came the bombshell. She wanted a divorce, just like that. She packed my clothes, emptied our accounts, and kicked me to the curb without a second thought. What Amanda did not realize in her rush to freedom was a small detail from our past that would change everything. Let me know in the comments where you are watching from. Hit that like button and subscribe to hear what happened next. I come from a simple background, raised by hardworking parents in a small town outside Chicago. My dad worked 40 years at the same factory, and my mom was a school secretary. They taught me that honest work and treating people right were the foundations of a good life. I followed in my father's footsteps, becoming a construction worker after high school instead of going to college. The pay was decent, and I took pride in building things that would last. Before meeting Amanda, I had my share of relationship disappointments. My high school sweetheart left for college and found someone new. Then there was Tara, who decided after 2 years together that she wanted someone more ambitious. Each breakup left me wondering if I would ever find someone who would accept me for who I was, a regular guy with simple dreams. My financial situation was stable but modest. I had managed to save a little, had minimal debt besides my truck payment, and lived in a small apartment that suited my needs. I worked overtime whenever possible, building a nest egg for the future I hoped would include a family someday. Then came that fateful 4th of July barbecue at my buddy Mike's place. The moment Amanda walked into the backyard, time seemed to stop. She had this radiant smile that lit up her whole face, beautiful blonde hair falling past her shoulders, and a genuine warmth about her. Mike introduced us, mentioning she was his cousin, visiting from the wealthy side of the family, but she seemed so down to earth. "Nice to meet you, Bob," she said, her voice like summer sunshine. "Mike says you can grill a mean steak." We spent the entire party talking. Amanda had graduated from an expensive private university with a business degree, but confessed she had no idea what she wanted to do with her life. Despite her privileged background, she seemed genuinely interested in my stories about construction projects and the satisfaction of creating something tangible. By the end of the night, I had her number. Our first date was simple dinner at my favorite local restaurant, followed by a walk along the river. I was nervous about not being able to take her to fancier places, but she insisted she preferred authentic experiences over pretentious ones. "Those fancy restaurants are all for show," she told me. "This place has heart." Our relationship moved quickly. Within 6 months, we were spending most nights together at my apartment. Amanda fit into my life, so naturally, getting along with my friends and seeming perfectly content with our modest lifestyle. I kept waiting for her to get bored or to let her privileged upbringing show. But she continued to surprise me with her adaptability and genuine affection. Meeting her parents was the first real challenge. They lived in a mansion in the most exclusive neighborhood in the city, complete with manicured gardens and staff. Her father, Richard, was a successful investment banker who barely concealed his disappointment when I told him what I did for a living. Her mother, Catherine, was polite but distant, studying me like I was a curious specimen in a lab. "Construction is such interesting work," Catherine said with a tight smile. "How quaint." Amanda squeezed my hand under the table and later defended me passionately when she thought I could not hear her arguing with her parents in the kitchen. "I do not care about his job or his bank account," she hissed. "He is kind and genuine and makes me happier than anyone ever has." Despite their reservations, our relationship continued to flourish. 8 months after we met on a perfect spring evening, I took Amanda back to Mike's backyard where we first met. I had arranged with him in advance, setting up lights and flowers. With my heart pounding, I got down on one knee and presented the ring I had saved for months to buy. It was not large or flashy, but it was the best I could afford. "Amanda, you have brought more joy into my life than I ever thought possible. Will you marry me?" Her eyes filled with tears as she nodded enthusiastically. "Yes, Bob, yes." The wedding planning revealed the gulf between our worlds. Amanda and I wanted something small and meaningful. Her parents pushed for an extravagant affair at their country club, with hundreds of guests, many of whom neither of us knew. We compromised on a medium-sized ceremony at a lovely garden venue, inviting the people who truly mattered to us, while including enough of her parents' circles to maintain peace. 2 weeks before the wedding, Richard and Catherine invited us to dinner. I thought it was to finalize wedding details, but they had something else entirely on their agenda. "Before you marry our daughter," Richard said, sliding a document across the table, "we need you to sign this prenuptial agreement." My stomach dropped. I knew such agreements were common in wealthy families, but the timing felt calculated and hurtful. Amanda looked mortified. "Daddy, no. We discussed this. I do not want this." Sweetheart Catherine interjected smoothly. "It is standard practice in families like ours. It protects everyone." I picked up the document and read through it. Most of it was straightforward, protecting Amanda's trust fund and family inheritances. But one clause caught my attention, stating that any lottery winnings would be considered community property to be divided equally, regardless of whose name was on the ticket. It seemed oddly specific. "Our family attorney insisted on being thorough," Richard explained, noticing my confusion. "These things need to cover all possibilities." Amanda took my hand. "Bob, please understand this means nothing. It is just a formality my parents insist on. I know you are not after my money." To prove that very point, I signed the document then and there. I am marrying Amanda because I love her, not for financial gain. Richard looked almost disappointed, as if he had secretly hoped I would refuse and give him a reason to object to the marriage. But the prenup was signed, the wedding proceeded, and Amanda became my wife. Our first years of marriage were everything I had hoped for. We found a nice apartment that we could afford on our combined incomes, as Amanda had started working as a marketing assistant at a local firm. It was nothing luxurious, but it was ours, and we made it a home together. I continued working construction, often taking overtime to build our savings for the future. Amanda adjusted to our lifestyle with grace. She learned to budget clip coupons and find joy in simple pleasures like our Friday movie nights or Sunday morning hikes. We talked about starting a family once we were more financially stable, perhaps after buying a small house. Those conversations always left me feeling like the luckiest man alive. "I never knew I could be this happy with so little," Amanda confessed one night as we sat on our secondhand sofa eating takeout. "My parents always equated happiness with possessions. We have everything that matters," I told her, and I truly believed it. By our 4th anniversary, however, subtle changes had begun to surface. Amanda reconnected with some of her wealthy college friends and started spending more time with them. She came home from these outings quiet and sometimes moody. When I asked what was wrong, she would smile and say everything was fine, but her eyes told a different story. "Did I do something wrong?" I asked after one particularly distant evening. No, of course not," she assured me, but without meeting my gaze. "I am just tired from work. I worked harder both at my job and at our marriage. I planned special date nights, bought small gifts I could barely afford, and tried to remind her of the connection we shared." There were good days when she seemed like her old self, but they became less frequent. Our intimate life suffered, conversations became shorter, and a wall seemed to be forming between us that I could not break through. One of the constants throughout our marriage was Amanda's lottery habit. Every Friday, without fail, she would buy a ticket. I teased her about it, gently calculating aloud how much she spent annually on this dream. "You know, the odds are something like 1 in 300 million, right?" I would say. "Someone has to win," she always replied with a smile. Why not me? That fateful Friday in June started like any other. Amanda bought her ticket. We had a quiet dinner at home and went to bed early. The next morning over coffee, she checked the numbers on her phone, something she did every Saturday. What was different was her reaction. She dropped her phone, her face drained of color, and she let out a strangled sound. "Bob," she whispered, "I won." "Won what?" "The lottery. I hit all the numbers. $9 million. I nearly spilled my coffee." "Are you serious? Let me see." She showed me her phone, her hand shaking. The numbers matched. My mind raced with possibilities. Our financial struggles were over. We could buy a house, start the family we had talked about. Perhaps I could start the small construction company I had always dreamed of. We spent that day in a daze, alternating between screaming with excitement and sitting in stunned silence. We made lists of all the things we could do with the money, dreaming bigger than we ever had before. We should talk to a financial advisor, I suggested. Make sure we invest most of it wisely so it lasts. Amanda nodded, but seemed distracted. Of course, but we should celebrate too, right? Live a little. In the days that followed, Amanda contacted the lottery commission and began the process of claiming her winnings. She opted for the lump sum payment, which would come to about $6.5 million after taxes. An incredible amount, but not quite the $9 million headline figure. As the reality of the win sank in, I noticed Amanda becoming secretive about the money. She opened a separate bank account without discussing it with me. When I asked about it, she said it was just temporary until we decided how to manage the winnings. I do not want to mix it with our regular finances yet, she explained. It complicates our taxes. It made sense, yet something felt off. She began buying expensive clothes, upgraded her phone to the latest model, and talked about trading in her car for a luxury brand. Should not we wait until we have the financial plan in place? I suggested after she came home with shopping bags from stores where I had never set foot. Bob, we are millionaires now, she said with an edge to her voice. We can afford to live a little. Amanda started going out more frequently with her wealthy friends, attending lunches and spa days that stretched long into the evening. She bought them lavish gifts to celebrate our good fortune. Meanwhile, I continued working, feeling increasingly like a spectator to my wife's new life. The mysterious phone calls began about a month after the lottery win. Amanda would take calls in another room, speaking in hushed tones. If I walked in, she would quickly end the conversation. The same happened with text messages that made her smile in a way I had not seen in months. Work stuff she would say dismissively when I asked. But Amanda had never cared that much about her marketing job before, and now she was suddenly taking calls at odd hours. I tried to ignore the growing pit in my stomach. I told myself I was being paranoid, that the sudden wealth was an adjustment for both of us. But the woman I had married was disappearing before my eyes, replaced by someone I barely recognized. I will never forget that Tuesday. I came home from work earlier than usual, having finished a project ahead of schedule. The moment I walked through the door, I knew something was wrong. Amanda's expensive new suitcases were in the living room, packed and ready. She was dressed in designer clothes I had never seen before, her hair freshly styled. She flinched when she saw me clearly, not expecting me home so soon. Bob, we need to talk. Those words froze my blood. I stood there still in my work boots and dusty clothes as she delivered the blow that would shatter my world. I want a divorce, she said, her voice eerily calm. This is not working anymore. What, Amanda, where is this coming from? If something is wrong, we can fix it. There is nothing to fix. I have outgrown this marriage. I need to find myself, explore who I really am. I stood there in shock, trying to process her words. Is this because of the money? Has it changed you that much in just a few weeks? This has nothing to do with the lottery, she snapped, though her eyes shifted away. I have been unhappy for a long time. The win just gave me clarity. I moved toward her, reaching for her hand, but she stepped back. Amanda, please. We took vows. For better or worse, let us talk about this. Maybe see a counselor. There is nothing to discuss. I have made my decision. Her voice was cold, like a stranger's. I need you to leave. Leave. This is my home too. I have paid the rent 3 months in advance. You can stay at a hotel until you find a new place. I could not believe what I was hearing. You are kicking me out. Just like that, I need space, Bob. My lawyer will contact you about the divorce proceedings. My mind reeled. Lawyer. You already have a lawyer. She nodded, not meeting my eyes. I filed the paperwork yesterday. The betrayal cut deep. While I had been working overtime, she had been planning to leave me consulting attorneys, making arrangements. And not once had she tried to talk to me about any problems in our marriage. What about the lottery money? I finally asked. What about it? I bought the ticket with my own money from my personal account. It has nothing to do with you. I was forced to pack a duffel bag with essential belongings while Amanda watched impassively. When I went to withdraw some cash from our joint account for a hotel, I discovered it had been emptied that morning. 5 years of marriage, and she had left me with nothing but the clothes on my back. You took all our savings, I asked in disbelief. "Consider it my parting gift to you, freedom from financial stress," she said with a coldness that did not match the woman I had married. "The money is safely in my account now." I had to call Mike humiliated as I explained that I needed a place to stay. He immediately offered his couch, asking few questions, but the concern evident in his voice. As I left our apartment, Amanda did not even say goodbye. 3 days later, while crashing on Mike's couch and trying to figure out my next steps, I saw Amanda's social media update. She was in the Bahamas, staying at a 5-star resort, posing with champagne, and a man I had never seen before. The caption read, "Starting my new chapter in style." The divorce papers arrived by courier the following week. They contained outrageous claims, stating that I had contributed nothing to the marriage, that I was lazy and financially irresponsible. There was no mention of the lottery winnings anywhere in the documents. Her lawyer demanded I sign away any claim to marital assets in exchange for a one-time payment of $5,000. "This is insane," I told Mike after reading through the paperwork. "She is hiding the lottery money from the court. That has to be illegal." "You need a lawyer, man," Mike said. "A good one." But good lawyers cost money, something I suddenly did not have. I called several attorneys, but the retainers they requested were far beyond my means. Finally, I found James, a young lawyer who had just started his own practice and was willing to work with me on payments. "This is not right," James said after reviewing my case. "Lottery winnings acquired during marriage are typically considered marital property regardless of whose name is on the ticket. She claims she bought it with her personal money, not joint funds." James asked me to bring any financial documents I had. Together, we pieced together evidence that Amanda had been planning this for months. Bank statements showed large withdrawals, beginning shortly after her reconnection with her wealthy friends. There were charges for hotels. I had never visited restaurants where we had never eaten together. "I think she has been seeing someone else," James said gently. "These hotel charges are consistent with an affair." The pain of that realization was almost physical. Through further investigation, James discovered that the mystery man in her Bahamas photos was Todd, her wealthy ex-boyfriend from college. They had apparently reconnected at a friend's party 6 months earlier. Most disturbing was the evidence that Amanda had deliberately concealed the lottery win from the court. Financial records James obtained showed she had already spent nearly $1 million in just a few weeks on luxury purchases, the Bahamas trip, and transfers to a new account we could not trace. "She is burning through this money, hoping to spend it before the divorce is finalized," James explained. As we built our case, I suddenly remembered the prenuptial agreement I had signed before our wedding. I mentioned it to James, who immediately perked up. "You have a copy?" I was not sure. After digging through boxes of paperwork I had hurriedly packed from the apartment, I found it at the bottom of an old filing folder. James read through it carefully, his eyes widening when he reached a particular section. "Bob, this is it," he said, pointing to the clause about lottery winnings. "This prenup specifically states that lottery winnings are community property to be divided equally, regardless of whose name is on the ticket. Her parents insisted on this clause. Is that unusual?" I asked. "Very. Typically, prenups are designed to protect existing assets, not specify how future windfalls should be handled." James was practically grinning now. "This is exactly what we need. Their own document is going to work against them." For the first time since Amanda had kicked me out, I felt a glimmer of hope. We had a strategy, and it was based on the very document her family had forced me to sign. The day of our court hearing arrived. I entered the courtroom nervous but determined, dressed in the best suit I owned, which James had helped me retrieve from the apartment. Amanda was already there, sitting confidently beside her expensive attorney, a man in his 50s with a reputation for aggressive tactics. She barely glanced my way, busy texting on her new phone. Her parents sat directly behind her, Richard looking as imposing as ever in his tailored suit, Catherine perfectly coiffed and cold. They had clearly come to support their daughter, and probably to intimidate me. I had no such backup, just James and the truth. The proceedings began with Amanda's attorney painting me as a gold digger, claiming I had married Amanda hoping to benefit from her family's wealth. He conveniently omitted any mention of the lottery win. When questioned directly by the judge, he claimed that any winnings were separate property and had been spent on paying off Amanda's student loans and personal debts. When it was our turn, James approached calmly. "Your Honor, before we proceed further, I would like to submit this document as evidence." He presented the prenuptial agreement to the court. Amanda's attorney scoffed. "We are well aware of the prenup, Your Honor. It protects my client's family assets from the respondent. If you would direct your attention to Clause 12, James continued smoothly, providing copies to the judge and opposing counsel. The judge read silently, then looked up in surprise. This clause specifically designates lottery winnings during the marriage as community property to be divided equally. Amanda's face drained of color. She turned to her parents with a look of shock and betrayal. Richard appeared confused, whispering urgently to Catherine, who had gone very still. "Furthermore, Your Honor," James continued, "we have evidence that Mrs. Williams won $9 million in the state lottery 6 weeks ago, a fact she has deliberately concealed from the court. We also have financial records showing she has already spent approximately $1 million of these winnings in an apparent attempt to dissipate marital assets before divorce proceedings." The judge's expression darkened. "Is this true, counselor?" he asked Amanda's attorney. The lawyer looked flustered, clearly caught off guard. "Your Honor, we contest the applicability of that clause. The ticket was purchased with separate funds. The prenuptial agreement makes no distinction about the source of funds used to purchase the ticket," the judge noted, reading further. "It clearly states any lottery winnings during the marriage are to be divided equally." Amanda leaped to her feet. "That is not fair. I bought that ticket. The money is mine, Mrs. Williams. Please sit down," the judge ordered sharply. "Your own agreement, which you and your family insisted upon, clearly states otherwise." After reviewing all the evidence, including the proof of Amanda's spending spree and attempts to hide assets, the judge ruled in my favor. The remaining lottery winnings, approximately $5.5 million, were to be frozen immediately. As per the prenuptial agreement, I was entitled to half of the original winnings, $4.5 million. Amanda's face contorted with rage. "You cannot be serious. He does not deserve any of it. He is just a construction worker." Her outburst only damaged her case further. The judge ordered an immediate accounting of all assets and spending, since the lottery win with Amanda responsible for reimbursing the marital estate for funds already spent. Richard and Catherine looked stunned. The prenuptial agreement they had insisted upon to protect their daughter had become the instrument of her undoing. The clause about lottery winnings, so peculiar at the time, had been included precisely because they feared I might come into money and try to shield it from Amanda. The irony was not lost on anyone in the courtroom. As we left the courthouse, Amanda tried to approach me, her earlier confidence replaced by desperate bargaining. "Bob, we can work something out between us. We do not need lawyers and judges involved. Maybe we can get back together." I looked at her, this woman I had loved, so completely now a stranger consumed by greed. "The time for that has passed, Amanda. You made your choice." Her parents were waiting by their luxury car, Richard's face thunderous. "You planned this somehow," he accused. "You manipulated the situation." "No, sir," I replied calmly. "I simply benefited from your careful planning. The prenup was your idea, remember?" The settlement process took several more weeks, with Amanda fighting every step of the way. She accused me of manipulating her into marriage, of being abusive, of having affairs, anything to turn the tide. But the evidence and the prenuptial agreement were irrefutable. In the end, I received $4.5 million, exactly half of the lottery winnings as specified in the agreement her parents had insisted upon. The first few days after receiving the money were surreal. I had never seen such a large number in my bank account. There was a temptation to spend lavishly, perhaps even spitefully, to show Amanda and her family that I could live the high life too. But that was not who I was. Instead, I made an appointment with a reputable financial advisor. I invested the majority of the money in a diversified portfolio for long-term growth. I bought a modest but comfortable 3-bedroom home in a nice neighborhood. Nothing flashy but solidly built, as I had always appreciated good craftsmanship. With a portion of the money, I started the small construction company I had always dreamed of, specializing in affordable, energy-efficient homes. I hired some of my former co-workers, who had always been good to me, creating jobs and building something meaningful. The business grew steadily, not because of my lottery windfall, but because of hard work and honest dealings. The most unexpected part of the aftermath came about a year later. I was having dinner at a local restaurant when Amanda walked in alone. She looked different, less polished, almost subdued. When she saw me, she hesitated before approaching my table. "Hello, Bob," she said softly. "You look well." She did not. Despite her expensive clothes, there was a weariness to her that had not been there before. We talked briefly awkwardly. She mentioned she was living in a condo downtown now. Her parents had apparently cut her off after the court case, disappointed in how she had handled the situation and embarrassed by the publicity it had generated in their social circles. "I made a mistake," she said, finally, looking down at her hands. "I got caught up in the money and what Todd and my old friends were saying. I threw away something real for something that turned out to be an illusion. I could have been bitter or gloating, but what would be the point? I hope you find happiness, Amanda," I said sincerely. She looked at me with tears in her eyes. I had it once. I just did not recognize it until it was gone. As she left, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The anger and hurt I had carried were finally releasing their grip on my heart. I realized that true wealth had nothing to do with bank balances. It was about character integrity and the ability to find joy in both good times and bad. The money changed my life. There is no denying that. It provided security and opportunities I never would have had otherwise. But it did not change who I was at my core or what I valued. In a strange way, Amanda's betrayal had set me free, allowing me to build a life aligned with my true self. Today, my construction company employs 15 people, and we have built over 30 homes for families who might otherwise have been priced out of the market. I volunteer with a financial literacy program teaching young people about budgeting and investing. And yes, I have started dating again, taking it slow, looking for connection rather than convenience. The greatest lesson I learned from this experience is that people reveal their true selves, not when times are good, but when faced with temptation and adversity. Money does not corrupt people. It simply amplifies who they already are. Have you ever had an experience that revealed someone's true character to you? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please hit the like button, subscribe to hear more real-life experiences, and share this video with someone who might be going through tough times. Remember that sometimes what seems like the end of your story is actually just the beginning of a better chapter. Thank you for listening, and I wish you all the clarity to see people for who they truly are before investing your heart in them.